Hello and welcome to the reading of the first book of my series, Land and Sea. I hope you guys will enjoy very much. Yes. So let's get started. Chapter 1. My name is Emily Jones. I am 11 years old and my parents are Captain Tillian Jones and Mila Gold. We live on my father's ship on the outskirts of Neverland. My father, as you might have guessed, is a pirate. I only have my father's crew as friends, but I have seen a boy flying around on the island, sometimes with a shadow next to him. One time, my father saw me admiring this very sight and told me to sit down with him, so we headed below deck. Now, Emily, that boy flying around the island is Peter Pan. He is as evil comes. Never go on that island, or say the words, "I believe," or else the shadow will come for you, my father told me. Okay, I promise that I will never go on the island or speak the words "I." My father put his hand over my mouth. The shadow looked towards us, as if he had heard me. Luckily, he turned away. Now that is why you must never utter those words. He will come for you, and you will never see me or your mother ever again. Do you understand? He asked. Yes, Papa, I replied. But then the storm came. It was 5 o'clock in the morning, and one of the biggest storms that I have ever seen was approaching. My father was getting ready to sail north, away from the island, so that my mother and I would be safe. We were below deck, trying to get comfortable so that we could rest. But then Peter Pan appeared. He broke through the window, flew over to me, grabbed me around my waist, and flew me away. Then everything went black. Chapter 2. Peter Pan was 17 years old, and he lived on the island of Neverland. The other people there were his shadow, the Lost Boys, and himself. The shadow only talked when it was absolutely necessary. So, Pan was very lonely. His time was taken up with keeping an eye on the Jones ship and flying around to look at the beautiful sights. The only non-beautiful items were the poisonous plants surrounding the island. Most of all, the dream shade. Peter, the ship is moving away and the storm is coming. Are you ready to take cover in the camp? The shadow said, flying up alongside Peter. His eyes glowed brightly blue. Of course I am. What do you take of the King of Neverland? A fool in his own realm? He replied, lying. He had more plans than to just lie around and wait for the storm to pass. The most important was rescuing the girl, Emily. Her father was heading directly towards the eye of the storm, and though normally that space is supposed to be calm, this was a Neverland storm, and one of the most ferocious ones of the year, it seemed. He needed to save her, and besides, he wanted to get to know her better. Not that he loved her or anything, and besides, to love anyone would bring his demise. To be immortal on Neverland was to never love, hence the never. It was a sad but long and forever young life on the island. Well, except for the ones who came uninvited, such as Emily. So, he did something that he had been training for, smashing through windows and grabbing children out of their beds. He was planning on teaching this shadow, but then again, he could open windows with a wave of his hand, using gale force winds. But never mind that. He grabbed the girl, and as he was flying, he grabbed his dagger and hit the girl on the back of the head with the hilt. And with that, he flew to his camp in the middle of the forest. Chapter 3. I woke suddenly to the sound of boys yelling and the crackling of a fire. Sitting next to me was Peter Pan. Look who's up, everyone, Pan yelled over to the shouting boys. They all stopped and turned to face me. I checked my watch and saw that it was nearing 7. So, what's your name, love? Pan asked, with a British accent and devilish grin. I knew he already knew my name, but it seemed the boys didn't know. I'm Emily, I replied with a quiver in my voice. Pan sat up straighter. Oh, we already know that. We want to know your last name, too, Pan said, making his grin widen a little. I'm Emily Jones, I said, trying to be brave. See, isn't that much better? Now we know what to call you. Miss Jones, he said, and he looked over to the boys. Oh, but I forgot to introduce myself and my crew. Well, I am Peter Pan, and these are my Lost Boys. My father told me to stay away from you. All you are is a horrible monster who kidnaps children from their families. And that's exactly what you did to me. I grabbed a dagger from my belt. Pan grabbed his own. Except this one had a strange black substance on the point of it, and blood on the back. Suddenly, my head began to sting. I put a hand on the back of my head and felt sticky blood in my hair. What did you do to me? I shrieked into the air. Pan's grin turned into a frown. Well, I couldn't let you know the way to my camp. Your father would only come here and try to kill me. But that can't happen, since I am immortal. Your father would be the one whose blood is spilled, and we wouldn't want to leave you alone either, he replied. But of course, you would always be allowed to become a lost girl. He seemed to be hinting something, in his own way. It was a very peculiar way to hint to someone you wanted to do something. I would never join you. You would only put me in a cage. And then Pan was angry. He took his dagger into a cutting grip, shoved me against the tree, and put the dagger to my throat. Oh, I wouldn't count on that, love, he said. I whimpered a little, not able to stand the tall boy with the dagger ready to slice through my throat. Just imagine it, and you would understand why I was scared. He moved his hand away from my throat, realizing that scaring me wouldn't help his predicament. He slowly backed away until he was able to sit down on a tree stump in the shape of a throne. He seemed to be thinking. He let out a small sigh and slowly walked back towards me. Okay then, love, how about a deal? He asked. What kind of a deal? I shot back. How about tomorrow night, if you come to the shore of the island, I will personally take you on a trip around the island. Deal? Deal, I replied. Pan's grin widened so much that it seemed his mouth would rip. Then I will see you tomorrow, he said cheerily, and walked behind me. Now, this will hurt a bit. And once again, everything went black. Chapter 4. Well, Pan, that wasn't tough, now was it? You didn't listen to me, so I hope it was worth it. And for your information, I am not bringing that girl here. That's your own job, the Shadow said with a slight laugh in his voice. It was as if the Shadow was mocking Pan. Yeah, I understood the consequences that I would have to undertake to bring her here. And before you say it, I know I can't love, or else my immortality will be taken away. I know you have already told me 1,000 times, Pan yelled back, understanding that the Shadow was angry at the response. Well then, Pan, I believe you should rest if you are to be busy tomorrow night, the Shadow said, and then he disappeared. Felix walked up to him. Pan, are you sure you want this girl to know about the island? She is the daughter of Jones. I understand that. Now would you all just leave me alone? Pan yelled the last part and, realizing his poor choice of words, flew away. Chapter 5. I awoke the next morning in my bed on the ship. Everyone was standing or sitting below deck, waiting for me to wake up. And when I was, everyone started cheering. Emily has returned! I ran over to my mother and father, greeting them with a warm embrace. Papa, Mom, oh, I'm so happy to see you, I said, shedding tears of joy. Everyone began to ask me what had happened, where I had gone, what Pan had done to me. All right, everyone, let the lass get some rest, and she can tell us her story later, my father said to the crew. Everyone went upstairs, setting up the place for my story. 2 hours later, I was helped upstairs and seated into a chair, and began my story. When I was finished about an hour later, I received words of encouragement and joy. Everyone was happy to see me back, but I still haven't told them of my deal. There still is a little bit left, I said, knowing that everyone would want to know what it was. I made a deal with Pan, and I'm supposed to go to the island tonight so that he can show me the whole of it. And he said that I am only allowed to have one person take me to shore. Everyone let out a shocked gasp, knowing that I had to have been joking. But when they looked into my eyes, they knew that I was not joking around. Do we have any volunteers? My father shouted out into the crowd. No one said a word. Well then, Emily, I guess I am going with you. We will be back by low tide tomorrow. So, my father and I set up the dinghy, our little rowboat attached to the side of the ship. We packed food and water for my father, and for me was a little bottle of the black substance that Pan had had on his dagger. Emily, I want you to promise me that you will use this if it is necessary, okay? My father asked. What is it? I will only use it if I know what it is, I replied. My father let out a sigh. Dreamshade, the deadliest thing on this island. That is why you are going to need it. But Pan told me Don't believe what that boy tells you. Everything he says is a lie. And so I shut my mouth. We departed the Jolly Roger at about 10:30. We would still have time to get there before Pan did. When we got to the island, it was pretty much 11, and when my watch beeped 11 times, Pan appeared out of nowhere. Well, hello there, love. I'm glad you didn't break our little deal. Now, if you could just give the girl to me, Jones, you can have her back by dawn, he said. You are not allowed to talk to my daughter in such a way, mate. You know that I can destroy parts of this island, and you will never get to see her face again, my father replied. Okay, well this isn't stupid at all. 2 men fighting over me, one my father, the other a demon. I wonder how this will end, I said, breaking through what I saw to be a bloody battle. All right, I won't talk to her that way. At least not in front of you, Pan said. Now, come along, Miss Jones, we have an island to explore. Pan walked up to me and held out a hand, signaling me to get a move on. Don't worry, Papa, he won't hurt me. He would never hurt an innocent girl. Or at least, I'm pretty sure he won't. I grabbed Pan's hand, gave my father a kiss on the cheek, and off we went. At first we started out walking, but Pan seemed to have other ideas. Now, I want you to hold on tightly to my hand and believe, Pan told me. Believe what? In you? I asked. No, silly, I want you to believe that we can fly, because that's what we're about to do. So I squinted my eyes shut and kept thinking, we can fly, we can fly, we will fly! And then we did. Chapter 6. Peter, Pan, and Emily were flying, something Pan had experienced countless times before, but found it more exhilarating with Emily next to him, gripping his hand with her eyes still closed. You know, you might want to open your eyes if you want to see Neverland, Pan said, trying to convince her that they were both still alive. Emily slowly opened her eyes and took in the scene before her. It's beautiful! Emily cried out into the night air. I know, it is. Doesn't it just make you want to stay here forever? Pan knew he had blew it by the time the words were out of his mouth. Oh, not this again. I already told you, I will not be a lost girl. Emily tried to get away from Pan, but he had an iron grip around her tiny hand. Oh, Emily, I forgot to mention. If you let go, you will fall to your death, most likely in a patch of dream shade, Pan told her. The look of fright on her face was more than Pan could handle. Look, we'll land on that cliff over there. It is the best place to look across Neverland. They landed on a spot of damp grass, touching lightly onto the ground. The landing was soft but shocking, for without realizing it, they had already spent about an hour flying through the air. That was amazing, Emily softly said, not wanting to break the peaceful silence on Neverland's shores. The waves were gently lapping in the beach beneath them, the birds were singing a beautiful song, and for the first time in Emily's life, the moon was gradually making its way across the night sky. I know, right? It just makes you want to spend every second of your day in the air, without a care in the world. You know, when I first came here, that's all I did. Lay back in the sky, admiring my beautiful island. But that was in the old days. Pan seemed to have drifted into a distant memory, then jerked suddenly back into reality. Well, all you have to do is enjoy your time here with your friends and family until your time is up in the world. Or at least, that's what it's like in the story, Emily said back, sounding too old for his small frame. I guess I didn't even think about that. You know, you're pretty smart for spending all of your time on a ship on the outskirts of Neverland. Thank you, Emily meant before going into a fit of laughter. What's so funny? Do I have something stuck in my hair? Ben asked, wanting to know what Emily was giggling so much about. You mean you never noticed you were taking advice from a girl who's 6 years younger than you? And that the Lost Boys are watching us from the shadows? Pan whipped around, seeing that Emily was indeed correct. Felix walked out of the shadows and up to Pan. So, what did I tell you, boys? Pan was just having a little tea party with his little girlfriend, Felix said, and all the boys began to laugh. Why, I oughta... Emily cut Pan off. Now that is no way to behave. You should all be ashamed of yourselves. Pan has taken care of you, given you a home, where you can be happy, and you repay him by spying and making jokes about him? Now that is just not nice, Emily said in a lecturing voice. She had tried to get as tall as Felix, but he had to be the same size as Pan. Well, look what we have here, boys. A new lecturer. Pan, get this little girl back to where she belongs. Away from here, Felix said, shoving Emily over. Emily was at the edge of the cliff, and the ground beneath her was not stable. "Emily!" And just as the words made it out of Pan's mouth, the ground fell. "No!" Pan flew down the side of the cliff, just barely reaching Emily before she made contact with the water. A mermaid appeared, its teeth bared, as if it had been about to snatch Emily. "Not this time, mermaid!" Pan kicked the mermaid across the head and flew back to the cliff. Emily had blacked out. The end of Chapter 5.